recorded. For those new faces too, I ask that you come up to the podium and introduce yourself with your name and address, just for those watching at home, and that it is being recorded. So with that, any items from the public not on the agenda? Great. All right, Alex, why don't we move to item number 3?
And before I get started here, Alex Arenello, Director of Public Works. I want to introduce Bill Fox. As you know, our previous consultant, Dr. Carlos Hernandez, has moved on. We trained him well, and now he's moved on to more controversial items over at our neighbor, in Boulder. But Bill Fox is also a principal in that firm, and I'll let Bill kind of give his background. And we've probably known each other for 40 years, so we go way back.
Late 80s, anyway, mid 80s. Bill Fox, Fox Tuttle Hernandez, still Hernandez till the end of the year. Fox Tuttle Hernandez Transportation Group in Boulder, and I'm a traffic engineer, transportation planner, been working on this kind of stuff for over 30 years. And at one point we had done traffic calming program development or specific neighborhood implementation recommendations at probably 25 different communities around Colorado. So we have a strong background in the topic of traffic calming, amongst other things.
Good. So Carlos, before he left, had put together this summary presentation looking at back the whole year. And I kind of used that to put together tonight's presentation. As we go through there's a couple of items like 76th and Sycamore and Rock Creek Circle that are actually in this presentation. I don't have memos or attachments on it, but I'll go through those and refer to attachments as we move along. So overview of this year, and all these items we'll be discussing tonight, and various aspects of it. We do, not on here, is Castle Peak, and we did kind of complete the Castle Peak speed humps by installing the 2 permanent ones this past summer. So an overview, we started with organizing and restating the TS program, steps and thresholds. We had 4 neighborhoods that applied to the program. Actually, it's probably a 5th now. We had 4 community meetings with over 60 residents. We had 2 online surveys with over 700 responses, and we had dozens and dozens of emails. We had 15 neighborhood traffic study locations in 6 neighborhoods. Approximately 2 weeks of total data collected, including weekdays, weekends, holidays, and summers, and most of it was during when the Boulder Valley School District was in session. I would note, or Carlos noted, that every count location had an 85th percentile speed that did not exceed 5 miles per hour over the posted speed, or usually 25 miles an hour. And I point that out is that we had a discussion early last year about whether to change criteria or not. You're going to see a lot of data tonight and at other times, and really a lot of these locations don't exceed the 5 miles an hour over the 25 mile posted speed. There's another criteria used, and that was over 500 vehicles per day. And we had a lot of locations that were above that. So as you go through that, you may want to think about the criteria. In some of my memos, I also point out a criteria that we currently use in our new roadway designs. So in the town center, we have another set of criteria to try to build in traffic calming from the get-go. And a lot of streets that you'll see tonight don't have that built in. They have long segments. They have curves that are designed for 30, 35 miles an hour. So they don't have the unimpeded distances that we would normally look for in our new standards. So I gave you that criteria as well. But as we go through, none of these locations really exceed what the old criteria was in terms of exceeding 5 miles over the posted speed. And then full stop compliance is in the 2 to 10% range. We did do a compliance study, and Bill will talk about that a little later at Pitkin. And that was in range of what our studies have done. We've looked at stop sign compliance in the past and looked at that, and it was kind of in the typical range that we find for always stop conditions. So we have put together 5 steps for our traffic calming guidelines, and these neighborhoods show where we are in each of them. Like Pitkin, we've had the project initiation, we have had data collection, eligibility review, and then community outreach. So we've completed community outreach, although there's some neighbors that feel we should have more community outreach. And so tonight we have final review if TSC wants to take some action, make some recommendations to the board. Same with 76th and Sycamore and Rock Creek Circle. Now, Yarrow Circle, Torrey's Peak, and River Bend, they're kind of the first steps in the process. They've submitted applications for traffic calming measures in their neighborhood, and we've done data collection in their neighborhoods, which we'll be presenting to you tonight, and asking for further direction from the board about further data collection or terminate the process, conduct neighborhood meetings, and so forth. So you'll have an opportunity for those 3 neighborhoods to look at the data. So we'll start with the Pitkin neighborhood. Again, we've gone through the 4 steps in the process, and this is kind of our final TSC review. You can see in this particular item, you can see the temporary speed hump that we installed last summer. We had an extra one that came out of Castle Peak, so we installed it here to test the performance of the speed hump and reduction in speeds and so forth. We don't like to keep those temporary speed humps in place over the winter because the plows come through and they destroy them. So we knew we were going to take it out in October, and the neighborhood wanted us to take speed data after it was taken out. So we have, before we did anything back in September of 18, I think, then we put the speed hump in and then took it out, took some data afterwards. So we have before and after the speed hump went in. Last September, we presented this graphic with some potential measures, potential raised crossings, looking at grade issues, about a 30-foot drop over 1,200 feet. We had presented that graphic. The neighbors came forth and they presented to the TSC back in the September meeting, and the TSC decided to install a temporary speed hump and also install an all-way stop at the intersection of River Bend and Pitkin. So that was done, and then the speed hump was taken out. In May, after the speed hump was down, we had a resident that went ahead and conducted his own survey of residents. He had 35 responses. I think there are about 50 homes in the neighborhood of residents that live along Pitkin, and then Rogan and Iliff and Carvel. So the red areas kind of indicate the residents that disapproved of that speed hump, and the green indicated those who made it permanent. Again, this is in May of 2019. In September, we had a neighborhood meeting. The board last September, in September 18, they said, well, put these devices in, let's have them up for a year, and then collect data, and then go back out to the neighborhood and discuss what was out there and get the residents' opinions and ideas about what should be done. We had about, in that September meeting, we had about 19 residents from Pitkin, Rogan, and Carval. It seemed like the neighborhoods were willing to find a balanced solution for everybody in the neighborhood. There was a perception that vehicles are going faster than the speed data. And that was an interesting exercise because Carlos kind of asked everybody, what did they think the 85th percentile speed was? And everybody thought it was 28, 30, 33 miles an hour, all higher than what the actual 85th percentile speed was measured. So there are issues of what people perceive the speeds are, and you're out there and you see a vehicle whizzing by, you think it's going fast, but you have a speed radar gun to really know. There was feedback that the speed hump is slowing traffic, but the design was not working for all vehicles and residents. Again, the temporary speed hump is narrower than what we would construct as a permanent speed hump. It does give you a little sharper bang as you go over it, and that people seem to like that for certain vehicles. The residents felt stop sign compliance was low, and they would like to see more enforcement. So at this meeting, the residents felt, let's collect the data. If you're going to take the speed hump out, let's take data after you take it out, and then let's look at stop sign compliance. So we took some more speed data and volume data, and we only did a weekday in the after period, so we tried to compare a weekday average before and after. And back in, let's see, up by kind of North Pitkin, just south of Carval, the volume was about the same, 220 versus 218 in October. It did change quite a bit. This was kind of scratching our head why it went from 483 in August to 584 in October for this stretch of Pitkin just before Riverbend. And this is the change in 85th percentile speeds. The red indicates it got worse. So by Carval, it went from 23 miles an hour in August to 24 in October. Right in the area of the speed hump, it went from 22 miles per hour in August to 25 miles per hour in October. And the other way, it went going the other direction, went from 24 miles per hour in August to 25 miles per hour in October. Those are the 85th percentiles. For some reason, it went down 26 miles per hour going northbound near Carval to 24 miles per hour. Again, 220 vehicles per day, so a few vehicles could ski that. There was some concern from residents that when we did the counts in October, they weren't in exactly the same locations as they were in August. Again, trying to locate these counters. We need something to attach the counters to, so you need a sign or something that we have to locate it to, and apparently they didn't think we put them in the right locations. Percentage of vehicles going over 28 miles an hour. We're up by Carval, 3% going in the southbound direction, 8 to 11%. Again, a little change, getting slower from August to October. And there's the percentage in the near the Roggen intersection. And then percentage of vehicles traveling at or above 25 miles an hour. And then the fastest speeds we clocked, again, 36 miles per hour in some locations. There was an increase in the southbound direction without the speed hump, and with the red arrows. Again, in this area here, even though that the 85th percentile speed went down, well, I guess the fastest speed went down as well from 39 miles an hour to 36 miles per hour. Now, Bill's going to talk about stop sign compliance and how he does these studies.
So we heard previously that there was concern about poor stop sign compliance in this neighborhood. And so we looked at 3 stop sign controlled intersections, Riverbend, Roggen, and Iliff. And in the course of, we actually watched about 1,100 vehicles go through these stop signs and tabulated whether they stopped or not. And not only, so folks that came to a complete stop, this graphic says that not that many people come to an absolute complete stop where your tires actually stop moving you look around before you proceed. We saw only 2% of the traffic going into the neighborhood actually came to a complete stop at Riverbend. 4% coming out of Iliff, 5% coming out of Roggin. So not very good response in terms of absolute stopping, but it's not as bad as this graphic would indicate, because we also looked at rolling stops, and we saw that almost 1,000 of those vehicles actually made a rolling stop and coming to a controlled, very slow speed. And if there was a reason to stop, like somebody had stepped out into the road, they could have done that. That rolling stop combined with the actual stopped vehicles from the previous slide says that most people are stopping or respecting the stop signs, but not everybody. You can see the numbers here. Between 80 to 94% of the vehicles going through these stop signs are making a rolling stop. So they would be combined with the folks on the previous slide. Now, the last one, the next one, Alex, these are the people that didn't stop at all. These are the people that didn't slow down at all. And so these are the ones that are of most concern. And so coming out of the cul-de-sac at Iliff, 16% of the traffic did not even slow down. They just rolled right out. They're on the outside of a curb. They can see both ways, and they rolled right into the road. 11% coming out of Roggin, same thing. Only 1% of the folks coming out of Riverbend didn't stop at all. But these are the folks that are of most concern. We did notice that some of these are delivery vehicles moving through the neighborhood. And this kind of concerning failure to stop at all on this approaching from a side street is a big deal, and why we don't recommend over applying stop signs in this kind of condition.
Bill, at the neighborhood meeting, you guys showed the video. I think the FedEx truck struck out at me as just zipping straight through. And you made a comment that this is not atypical for the rest of Boulder County.
Yeah, this is not unusual or unique to the town of Superior. This is what we'd see or expect to see at stop sign locations in many locations. And the higher volume of driving right through where there's good sight distance and low traffic on the approaching street, that combination tends to get people to say, I don't need to stop here. And yet they've got a stop sign that is telling them they need to stop, and folks are making a decision that they don't. But it's not unique to this neighborhood.
So we took that data and the feedback we got from that neighborhood meeting, as well as the other neighborhood meeting. Actually, we developed alternatives based on the first neighborhood meeting and presented at the second neighborhood meeting. We had 3 alternatives, and in this one, we added a neighborhood entry feature right at Riverbend. We added a stop sign where we had the stop sign speed bump, and we added another speed bump before you kind of enter this area where we have the residents that have back out driveways on Pitkin. And this, I kind of said, well, why don't we just remove the stop signs, and because you have the 2 speed humps kind of bracketing this area. Didn't get very much support for removing the stop signs. Go ahead. So the next option was to another neighborhood entry feature, speed hump where it was before, leave the stop signs at Roggin, and then neighborhood feature up towards Carval. And finally, here's one with neighborhood entry feature followed by a raised pedestrian crossing, and then a speed hump as you're coming into Roggin. We discussed these at length. There was a lot of debate. Didn't seem like there was coalition on any. There were a lot of several neighborhoods that thought we shouldn't do anything because the traffic data didn't support. It wasn't over the criteria that TSC had adopted. The speeds didn't seem to be that high, so there were a number of people that felt that nothing should be done. I developed this alternative because I want to present something to you as a compromise alternative. And this would be keeping the stop signs at the Riverbend intersection, keeping the stop signs at the Rogan intersection, and putting back the speed hump on a permanent basis, construct that as a permanent speed hump. There was also some discussion about a neighborhood feature further towards Carval. We thought we could combine that with a trail crossing, make this enhanced pedestrian crossing with islands, and we would relocate that trail to line up. When we costed those features out, speed hump would be about $12,000, but this cost for the enhanced crossing was about $60,000. So it's fairly pricey. And my opinion is that for the amount of traffic that we have up here, about 220 vehicles per day, it seemed like that it was hard to justify that expenditure. So with that, I will stop there.
That's one of the unique things about this neighborhood. I know everybody here, well, probably a lot of people here live in that neighborhood. There's no sidewalk on Pitkin on the south side, north side, I guess.
Right along here.
Yeah, past Isla.
I think there's sidewalk here. Is there a sidewalk on this side?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk.
on one
So it's
side.
just, you know, I think we've all both looked at the data, and also probably the three of us don't live in that neighborhood, right? So our experience, unless you have a friend or somebody, business in that neighborhood, you wouldn't necessarily go. So I've just been trying to be up in that neighborhood, and I've parked my car and ridden my bike there a few times. And it is unique. I can't think of another area
Right, that doesn't have a sidewalk on
that
both
doesn't
sides.
have a sidewalk like that.
Mhm.
So and it does force people to cross the road if you're walking the street, presumably.
Right.
Or, one or the other.
Yeah, I don't recall that coming up at our neighborhood meetings.
No, it's an interesting, unique feature. Just
I think
as
there's
part of the
a
neighborhood.
drainage crossing that maybe is structured.
exactly. So staff's recommendation is just the speed hump.
That's our recommendation. And I would say we had probably 6-8 emails that hopefully I forward all those to you. And then there's people here tonight, I'm sure, that would like to speak about this.
Can you talk to the characteristic of the speed hump, how high it would be in compare it to maybe other speed humps that we've had in town that people have experienced?
Right. It would probably be 3 to 3.5 inches in height and would be, I think, 12 foot wide. And we've had experience with 14 feet wide, and they seem to be not as effective.
So you mean inches?
Right. So 3.5 inches high and then 12 feet wide.
12 feet wide.
Yeah, and I think the other one was maybe 6 feet. The temporary one was 6 feet. So it went up 3 inches and 6 feet. So it gave more of a jolt. Whereas the speed hump that we would put in on a permanent basis would be 12 feet wide and 3.5 inches high.
So on the temporary speed hump, you're slowing down to 10 mile an hour or less to not spill your coffee and have a pretty jolt. In this speed hump, if you're hitting it at 15, 20 miles per hour, are you spilling your coffee?
No.
Yeah, and Bill's done a lot of these around, so
Well, the devil is in the details of how you design and how aggressive you design the speed hump, and they're not all created equal. That's what you're talking about here. And if you do the Institute of Transportation Engineers recommendation that's 3.5 to 4 inches tall with a parabolic curve, you can design a speed hump that's effective to slow you down if you're traveling at 25, 30 or more, whereas at 15 to 20, it's not so jarring. But then it depends on your vehicle, the suspension, what type of vehicle you drive. But so they're not all equal, but the speed humps can be very effective in slowing down traffic. If you build them too soft, they don't work.
Okay.
The design that you just laid out, how does that compare to the ones on Weldona? Because I go across the Weldona one every single day.
The Waldona, I think we had a little experience there where they weren't as high and they were 14 feet wide.
Okay.
So I think learning from that experience, we had some feedback that, hey, they're not as effective. So we've kind of narrowed down from 14 to 12, and then we've made sure we get at least 3.5 inches.
And then what about the height compared to Castle Peak? To Castle Peak?
The height?
Yes, of these speed bumps.
Yeah, it's 3.5 inches, yeah.
So is
The Waldona, I
is that
think,
the same
the first one we built was maybe 3 inches.
on Castle Peak?
On
So it would
Castle
be
Peak,
similar?
on Castle Peak, I think we built them at 3.5 and 12.
Okay.
So these would be similar to the ones on Castle
Castle
Peak?
Peak, yes.
Have we had a lot of, or any complaints on the speed bumps on
No,
Castle?
none either way. No, people haven't really said they're not effective, and people haven't said, they're too aggressive. So I think we've hopefully hit a sweet spot.
I still remember the meeting when those were first installed. I think I was the only one who came to speak about them. So I think people have kind of ignored them in a good way.
Okay. Do we have other questions for staff, or otherwise let's take public comment on this?
Alex, I just wanted to talk briefly about the pedestrian crossing here. I know we received an email from the public that I thought made an interesting point. Someone had said they were originally only asking for the speed humps and not for the pedestrian crossing. So could you just talk to us a little bit more about why we're going for that as well?
We had a couple of comments from our neighborhood meeting that the Carvel residents wanted something as you're approaching, with Lincoln and Carvel split, to have something up there that maybe shows an entry feature. And so we were trying to put an entry feature in that kind of served dual purpose, of enhanced crossing and provide an entry feature to that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to the raised, I think as we rebuild all our roads, I think we should absolutely have raised crosswalks, and I don't think they should be 3.5-inch raised crosswalks, but not on, maybe what we've done in downtown Superior may be a little excessive, but some noticeable, even if it's an inch and a half crosswalk that is raised, so to both allow a pedestrian or a kid that's crossing to have a little bit more line of sight, and also just for something for the cars to notice instead of just a white line. But you're right, the cost of a raised crossing is a lot.
And this wouldn't be raised. This would be similar to what we did on Akron, where we had the islands.
Right. And
what it does is kind of narrow the roadway. So we have 2 roadways now that are, 12 to 14 feet versus the 32-foot roadway that we have the rest of the stretch.
I think, Bill, you made a really good comment, at the last meeting about, needing friction in the road to slow things down. I think that finally resonated with me because the stop sign compliance piece of it, you add that in, and we could lower speed limits to 20 or to 10 or to 5, but it won't matter unless we put physical features in the street wherever in terms of creating that friction. And that's kind of what that's designed to do.
A public comment on this issue, just asked to go to the podium and introduce yourself first. Please.
Hi, my name is Paul Mbirowitz. I'm at 9670 East Carvel Place. And I think this is a $72,000 solution looking for a problem. First of all, I don't think it was the Carvel people that wanted protected pedestrian crossing. I don't think that's the way that came out. In fact, most of the people, 69% of the people want nothing. Since I've lived on Carvel Place, 22 years, there's been 2 additional stop signs put in. I'm not arguing with those. These 2 stop signs here were not originally there, nor were these. And we didn't have any situations that we saw was a problem. And now today we're saying, well, we've got speeds that are well within the limit. We don't even have the number of vehicles traveling here to qualify under the TPC rules. We have barely them out here to qualify. And they're all in the speed regulations. They're all in those limits. So to me, it seems like we're spending money we don't need to spend in search of a problem. And, when I look at it, I don't see that there's a reason to spend any money here and go use it for something else. Plow the roads. Do something else with it. But I don't think it's necessary here, and particularly the protected pedestrian crossing. Thank you.
evening. My name is Joe Padilla. I've been a resident since July of 1993 on Carvel. I've attended 2 of the meetings. I think there were more meetings without the people of Carvel and other areas being invited. So in a way, the people from Carvel were 3 steps behind all of these innuendos or suggestions of speed bumps. In fact, we weren't even aware of the temporary speed bump. From a cost standpoint, I agree with Paul. $72,000 is a lot of money. Maybe in today's environment, people just think it's another drop in the bucket, but in reality, we have to face it, it's our tax dollars being spent here. Now, I brought up a conversation at our last meeting. Why are we doing this? Why are we having this conversation? My first thought was, when I came to the first meeting, was the safety of our children. We have to be concerned about the safety of our children. We have seen our children grow up for 26 years now. Some of our residents are now grandparents, and their concern is for the grandchildren. Absolutely, I'm totally supporting safety for our children. The other thing, obviously, is the observance of the speed limits, the law. But at the same time, for the last 4 or 5 years, as the community has changed, I saw a big difference going on. The speed probably was the same. The stop signs are definitely effective. But what really caught my eye was the fact that 20 years ago, we didn't have children playing in the street. But in today's environment, we have children in their battery-run cars right in the middle of the street. Do we need speed bumps for that? Do we really worry about the speed limit over our children? I think people have to start worrying now about having their children in the middle of the street, not speed bumps. Speed bumps aren't the answer to people, children playing in the street. So that's how I'm looking at this entire matter. Now, in regards to the people in Carvel agreeing to the protected pedestrian crossing, I don't remember that in any meeting 2 or 3. In fact, at the end of meeting 3, or meeting 2, which we attended because we were invited, when the conversation started, or the meeting started, everybody was talking about speed bumps, the height of the speed bump, the type of the speed bump, and one person came up, well, what do the new stats look like? Oh, we'll talk about that later. So as the meeting adjourned, the stats were brought up. And the stats reveal a substantial or a reduction in the exceeding the speed limit. So why are we going through spending $72,000? I see a law enforcement officer here. I got to ask you, isn't self-policing of a neighborhood one of the best ways of reducing speed and reducing burglaries and things of that nature? So we've been self-policing in Carvel. We went to a couple of houses and told them to slow down. It's ridiculous. We had one person tell us, I need a speed bump because, yeah, I know I exceed the speed limit, so I need a speed bump to remind me. Now, where are you coming from? But I agree with Paul 100%. Let's focus on our self-policing again. Let's monitor these speeds again, maybe in January, February, and March. I don't know how much that costs. I assume it's not going to cost us $72,000. But let's monitor them again. Let's see our self-policing at work. Let's see the neighbors that again, on the ones on Pitkin, I agree with them. I'm concerned too. But at the same time, there are people that have lead feet, and we're going to have to talk to them. But also, because of the change of the community, the children that are now driving, I hate to use the word teenagers, but I'll use the word teenagers, they have to be told to slow down too. I can't tell FedEx. In fact, probably the guy that's really speeding is the guy that's delivering the newspapers. He must be going 40 miles an hour at 4:30 in the morning. But to spend this money, to me, is really not cost effective. I think the community superior could use that money more effectively. And I also think that we ourselves in the neighborhood, the Pitkin, Rosedale, Carvel, we can all monitor ourselves. We don't need to spend $72,000. Thank you.
Thanks. Other public comment? We don't have the timer going, so if you could just try to keep the public comment in the 3 to 5 minute range, it'd be appreciated. Or under 3 to 5 minutes, come up, please. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Steve Zerbach, and I live at 947 East Carval Place. And what really glares out to me watching this presentation is the data shows there's no need for this. The data is clearly obvious. And the other thing that shows, if you're saying the stop sign compliance is not, what'd you say, 2 to 10%? Well, that's not very good, but the rolling stops, yeah, that's pretty good. But just because we put speed bumps, we could put 10 speed bumps in, that doesn't mean the car is going to stop at the stop sign. They might be slower, but they're still going to maybe roll through it. And I agree with Joe who just spoke, $72,000 for this? We have a lot more urgent needs in this community than I think this. And the other thing he's hit on, I also agree too, the safety of these children, of course that's paramount. We have to concern ourselves with safety of children. But it's also incumbent upon the parents, the grandparents, to monitor their children when they're on their watch, that they're not out playing in the streets. I've seen a house up on, I won't say where it is, they have a little green sign that they put out, says slow, and I've seen their kids out in the street with their toys. They leave them out there after they're done playing. Well, that's a public street. That's not a playground. So that shouldn't even be there. So I think there's another part of this story here. Why are these children in the streets not being supervised? Or if they're riding their bicycles, I've had two neighbors tell me that they've gone right in front of their cars and stopped and didn't move. So that's a whole separate issue. But I think the data, I think we've spent 2 times you've done the study on the data, which is really good. We've got good data here. How many times do we have to study this? So my feeling is the stop sign enforcement, that comes under the jurisdiction of the police. That's not the neighborhood's responsibility. If someone's going to drive through a stop sign or a red light, they deserve a ticket. But I don't think that warrants speed bumps and all that kind of stuff at $72,000. Okay, thank you.
Steve.
My name's Daryl Billington. I'm at 1105 South Pitkin. There are a couple of things with the data that I'd like to address. The fact that if you look at the data that you showed me on this picture, it has the data collection spot right about here. Oh, you moved it. When we actually got the October data, and now you're right in the spot.
We're going to pull up your...
Okay.
Good job, Alex. Darryl, Alex, why don't we just flip back and let Darryl, maybe we could pull up the visual aid later after Darryl provides his comment.
All right, so the data that you had that said you got collected said that the data was collected at this point in October. And that the arguments from my friends at Carvel said that there was a reduction in speed. Actually, the speed went up 8% without the speed hump if you look at the data again. However, it was right about here where the data was collected, which was about 100 to 120 feet when we stepped it off. and that you don't get an opportunity to get any speed if you come to a rolling stop at that stop sign. And in addition, when you're coming up the hill, you're going to slow down at about 100 feet to the stop sign. So I really question that data collection spot, even though it does show that there is an increase in that piece. And the reason that we know that is I live right here. And so this is the problem. So these people, if you look at that, and that survey that was given, I'd like to question the gathering of that data. As a public school teacher, I do not get 75% or 80% of assignments back, complete, over the next day that's optional. So I have a feeling that other people went around and said, do you think we need a speed bump, or is there a problem? No, yes. And of course, my friends at the end of these cul-de-sacs, when they live here and they have 1 or 2 or 3 houses passing them, they wouldn't see a need for speed bumps or speed issues at all. But we have 50 houses. All of these houses pass our house, and I'd like to be a neighbor and go and tell everybody, please slow down. But I can't make it to 50 people. I need a speed hump. And so when I asked officers, I asked Officer Kirby and former police officer Jeff Hendry, what's the best way to mediate and calm traffic? And he's like, 100%, you need a speed hump. We can't afford people to sit there, police officers to sit there. That's not a good use of our money for the 500 cars that pass a day. Now we have 20% of the cars not complying with the speed stop signs. We have 25% speeding. If you take 500 cars, that's 50 cars a day. That's a huge amount. And so this group here needs relief. And you can tell us about our parenting, and you can tell us back in the good old days in this thing, but I am afraid of my own safety in these places. And if you in Carville were afraid, I would support you. But we need help, and if you looked at that data, all these people wanted help. We need traffic calming measures. This corner here is blind. So when I park and I drive out of my driveway, all of a sudden cars are up on me because they don't stop. I'll slow down, they don't even honk. But I'm like, oh my God, did I not look and see? But it happens too often. So we need help. And if it's not needed down here, that doesn't influence my life. But I'm asking my friends at Carville and Rogan and Iliff, who only have 1 or 2 or 3 cars passing their house a day, to understand that we have about 500 or hundreds. And so we need some help. That's all. Thank you.
My name is Jim Connie, and I live at 1021 East Rogan Way, which is right here in this picture. So I got a clear view at this intersection. And, you know, I'm not going to argue with Alex's, you know, I was one of the people that said, hey, speeds are higher, and he quickly proved that was wrong, you know. And but my biggest concern, I said this at the last meeting, and I've corresponded with a few of you council members about this, is the people that just don't stop at these stop signs. You know, 3% don't stop. That's out of 584, that's 17 cars a day blow through that intersection. And I don't know what speed they're going at because I don't have a speed gun. Obviously, I was wrong last time. But, you know, for people up in Carville to sit there and say that it's not necessary, speed dampening is not necessary there. Well, you know, Joe, you know, you said we should police ourselves. I've been to some of your houses. And I've addressed people, you know, in a calm way, and was met with hostility on numerous occasions. Even some of my own neighbors on Rogan Way, I've confronted and met with hostility. So, you know, we need to, if people were stopping at these stop signs, it would be fine. You know, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, but I sit there and watch people blow through those intersections. And, you know, to sit there and say that it's not a problem, well, it is a problem, okay? And for somebody that doesn't sit there and watch it, I mean, I empathize with Daryl. I mean, he's got 584 cars a day going through there, 17 of them, whatever the actual number is. You know, don't stop at that sign. Yeah, that's unnecessary. And, you know, when we had the speed bump there earlier this year, you know, I timed it, and it was like somewhere between 4 and 7 seconds between the time I slowed down and got back up to speed, you know, up to the, I think it's 25 there. Well, guess what? I got 7 seconds in my life to slow down, and I hope every one of you do too. And it's, you know, we're not talking about this protective crossing. Alex is smarter than all of us are when it comes to this thing, and he's not recommending the pedestrian crossing. We're talking about $12,000. Well, guess what, guys? We've got that kind of money, okay? And to sit here and say that it's unnecessary, well, I'll have that discussion with you in private if you'd like to, and I can explain to you why it is. And like I say, I've been to some of your houses, okay? And, you know, I even had one of your sons come back to me and come to my house and beep his horn outside of the house, outside my house, because I told him who I was and I told him where I lived when I confronted him on your front porch. And, you know, so the self-policing doesn't work. And, you know, to spend $12,000 to slow things down, I'm in favor, and I would hope. And if this wasn't in front of my house, I would be in favor in front of your house. And so, you know, I would greatly support this, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch more people come up here and say that. But to sit there and say that we don't need this is short-sighted at best. So, thank you.
Hi, my name's Mike Middich. I live at 1100 South Pitkin. I guess I'd like to address some of Joe's concerns. I've been to several meetings now with Joe, and I keep hearing this complaint that the people from Carville weren't invited to the meetings. Well, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's a way where you can sign up for email notifications of these meetings, right? That's how I was notified. If you really care about what's going on in the neighborhood, sign up. Secondly, I heard this complaint that it's 72,000 wasted dollars. Well, everybody here is saying we need the speed bump, which is 12,000, and nobody is saying we need the pedestrian crossing. So that's 60,000. So really it's 12,000, which really is not that much money. With regard to the speed surveys, there were actually 3 speed surveys done, not 2. One was done when the original request for traffic calming was made, okay? And that one actually showed more than 10% of the people exceeding the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and 10% of them going greater than 30 miles an hour. So, you know, and I completely agree with what Daryl said, that when the third speed study was done, after the speed hump was removed, that the speed monitoring measurement device was in the wrong spot, and the speeds were definitely lower because of that. So, you know, I think, you know, we have to give some credence to the first speed study that was done, okay? Which does show people speeding. Then on this topic of self-policing, I don't see that that's anything we need to do. From my own personal experience, we had some people speeding past my house, actually two cars full of kids, drag racing past my house, driving side by side, okay? We actually went and confronted them, okay? We got some hostile feedback, okay? And then about a month later, I had a flat tire on a car that was parked in my driveway. When I took this into the tire shop, okay, they dug a piece of a knife out of the sidewall, okay? So, you know, I don't think self-policing is the answer. With regard to kids playing in the street, which is this thing I keep hearing, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is a residential street, right? So this street is shared by vehicles, it's shared by cyclists, and a lot of times it's shared by pedestrians, okay? So, you know, we need to face the fact that there are going to be pedestrians in the street. And also, there are really, in this section of the neighborhood, there are actually only 2 painted street crossings, okay? One is right here, okay? And the other one is down here. And so, or down there, yeah, you're right. So if you're expecting, you know, kids to follow the rules and cross at the street crossings, okay, there aren't any, okay? So, you know, we have kids in our neighborhood. They're going to be out there playing. I guess maybe some people would rather they stayed inside and played their video games all day. Personally, I think it's great that they're outside playing. And then with regard to this point about increased police enforcement. So at the last meeting I attended, I believe it was this gentleman over here said that the most expensive way to try to reduce speeds is putting a police officer in a uniform in the neighborhood. And it's also the least effective because as soon as he leaves, people start speeding again. So I think the real answer here is the speed hump. That's what we asked for from the beginning. We never ask for any of this other crap. What we need is the speed hump. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
I'll say something. Might as well. Hi, my name is Alicia Alpenfels. I live at 1105 South Pitkin Avenue, and I'm between Riverbend and Rogan, the area in question where we're asking for the speed hump. So there's only a couple of things that I want to point out just because I feel like everybody's hit on these topics and you guys have heard us for months, for 15 months now, talking about these topics. But I do want to also stress that the third test was flawed. We notified the town within 24 hours of those speed strips being placed that they were within braking zones. And Alex was aware of it, and he actually tried, I believe you said you tried to have them moved, and the people who laid them wouldn't move them because you were braking before you hit the speed strip coming up, and you were just starting to accelerate going down. And then in addition, for this one, it was already at the blind spot, so you were already naturally braking before you hit that curve. So both of those, unfortunately, that third test was just flawed. It did show speeds, but I believe if it had been placed in the original location or where the speed hump had been, it would have been greater, it would have been more significant. The other thing I want to say is when we first moved into our house over 6 years ago, we were the only kids in our strip. There are now at least 14 kids, and then there's more here because there's 2 new kids that just moved in. So there's 14 kids between here and here. And every time a house sells, these houses are being sold to families. So what was originally a concern for us and an issue is now a bigger problem because there's just simply more kids. I almost hit a child. Must have been around Halloween, and it was towards the end of Pitkin, and I was going, thankfully, 20 miles an hour. And to be honest, I got distracted by somebody's Halloween decorations, and I was looking left as I was going down Pitkin, and a 12-year-old rode his bike right in front of me, and I slammed on my brakes. There was still plenty of space, 10 to 15 feet, and his mom stopped me later and said, "I cannot believe he did that." That's a 12-year-old at the end of a cul-de-sac. And that was me going a reasonable speed. I shudder to think what would have happened if it had been somebody else that had been speeding. Now, when people talk about, this has been an interesting experience. Not only have we come here for 15 months to talk to you about it, but we've had a lot of neighbors question our parenting. We've had neighbors honk every time the temporary speed bump, that 5 months that the temporary speed bump was in. There was a car that every time that they went over, they honked. So for 5 months, We had a gray Bronco and a couple other cars honking, but yet we're told to self-police. Do you think I'm really going to go to that car on Carville, knock on the door after they've been honking for 5 months and say, hey, what's up? That's fairly aggressive. And I'm not personally going to put myself in that position. In addition, what else was I going to say? Oh, and then in addition, we have all these trucks just driving by. And so where we started 15 months ago, I'm finishing 15 months ago, saying that we need relief between these two areas. I don't think we need the mediation closer to Carville, but we do need something in front of our house. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Great. So this is a kind of a less, go ahead. Go ahead as you go up. Let me just say this is less formal than a board meeting. So if, as we continue discussion, if you'd like to make another public comment, if it's based on additional data or something else, feel free to come up. If you're going to come up and say the same thing or you're upset about a direction, please, I wouldn't do that. But in this informal process, you know, we want to keep, even though I hate the dais, we want to keep this more conversational. And the only reason why we're asking you to come up there is because this is recorded for the millions of people that are watching at home.
I'm David Drake. I live at 1110 South Pitkin, so right where this hump's going to be going in. I have 2 young kids, 6 and 8. We just moved here about a year and a half ago. I don't let my kids play in the street, you can rest assured. So they don't play in the street. But they do play in the screen space here. And every once in a while, a ball can slip in the street, and kids are kids. I've told them many times not to chase the ball in the street. I'm worried they will. If a car's going by there at 35 miles per hour, that's not a situation I ever want to see. And I hope it never happens to my kids or anyone else's. I'm not worried about the people in the neighborhood speeding, so self-policing doesn't really work. It's that FedEx driver and the other people who are coming through. Those are the people I worry about. I can't police them. I mean, they're delivering their packages. Might be a different driver next time. I can't chase them down. That's not something I can control, self-policing or otherwise. The data, you mentioned the data support, not having intervention. I think you're looking at the wrong side of the data.
I went through it all.
No, so 85%, 20 or 80% aren't speeding. That's the wrong number. 20% are. That's 120 cars coming through there. 120 cars a day speeding through here, right? So if you think about the percentages, that's not a big deal. If you think about 120 cars speeding past your house with young kids,
I'm not going to debate you.
that matters.
27 miles an hour.
Up to 40. So speed bumps, 40 miles per hour, it's going to slow that guy down. Right? That's what matters to me.
Let's try to, so the public comment, let's just try to.
So all right, all I'm saying is that this speed hump would alleviate a lot of my concerns with not just my kids, but all the other kids that play there. This is open green space. A lot of kids play here. And this is where the speeding is occurring. So we can do something about it for $12,000. Why wouldn't we do that? Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? I want to be aware of the time. So we're about an hour in, so let's have some discussion. And generally the Traffic and Safety Committee, as I think a lot of you may know, we're not, we're board members. We're empowered, I suppose, to make some recommendations and some decisions, like around the placement of temporary speed bumps, stop signs, things like this, or a stop sign, things like this, which would become more material, are likely going to go to the board for discussion and a final determination. So regardless of where this goes, this is probably going to show up at a board meeting at some point in the next few months. So while there hopefully will be a recommendation from Traffic and Safety tonight, and hopefully the board will support whatever recommendation that is, the board does not always support the recommendations that are made by the committees. Having said that, let me make some preliminary comments. I say this a lot. Our roads are really poorly designed in Rock Creek. They are way too big. If we were building this community today, we would never build the roads this wide with this much layout. with this long, I mean, think about how, just look at the aesthetics of this road. It's dumb, right? I mean, why would you have not put houses all the way along? And I'm sure, you know, the builders were trying to save a few dollars and good on them, but none of our roads are well designed. This is a really poorly designed road. The purpose of the 85 percentile, which I've been convinced, there's a lot of important things that come out of it, but it tells you the speed limit for which most drivers will feel safe driving. So if you feel safe driving at 25 miles an hour, 26 miles an hour, that's the speed that a lot of people are going to drive. That's a pretty heavy speed limit that's a pretty heavy speed for houses that are right there. I want to comment on who's invited and who has not been invited to this meeting. All of our meetings are open to the public. There's a number of ways we try to outreach to the community to inform people, from our website to our e-blasts. We have a new monthly mailer that says exactly what's happening this week. If you're not getting any of those, you can go on our website and sign up, but all of our meetings are certainly open to the public. There's always room for improvement for how we engage the community, so if you have another idea, you know, we played with some other social media platforms that were flat. The only thing people really look at are either Facebook or the email platform that we have. Unfortunately, the others didn't really work. We've been at this for 14 or 15 months at this point. I really appreciate everybody's help and persistence. I know a lot of people have a lot of passion about this issue. It's hard to stay focused on something for this long. We're trying to do something. We're trying to do this from issue identification to issue closed inside a year in the future. This is just taking too long. I do want to, and I think other people picked up on it, the staff recommendation is for a speed hump, not for the protected pedestrian crossing. This slide is a little misleading, but that is the staff recommendation. My instincts tell me that staff recommendations are usually consistent with committee recommendations, which are usually consistent with board decisions. So I don't know which way it's going to go, but in my experience, that's the way things often go. Read Kids in the Street. I did, so over the summer, I went up to Carve Out, rode my bike around, and went down and watched some cars blow through the stop signs, watched cars going way too fast. And then I went up to Carve Out, and good news, there were all kinds of kids playing in the street. There was a hockey game, which I enjoyed. I grew up playing hockey, and I thought it was great. And then I went back down the street, and I watched some more cars blow through the stop sign, and there were no kids on Pitkin that were playing in the street. And then I went back up to Carve Out to see if those kids were still playing hockey, and their hockey equipment was abandoned right in the middle of the street. Like right in the middle of the street, which I kind of thought was cool. It's not a good idea for your kids, and I'm not encouraging kids to play in the street, but there are other neighborhoods that live on cul-de-sacs, and the kids do play in the street. Again, I'm not saying it's a good idea. Everybody that moved into Pitkin had an idea that there were going to be 400, 500, 600 cars going through there. It's a terrible idea to play in the street when you have 400, 500, 600 kids, 400, 500, 600 cars going up, but kids are going to be kids. They're occasionally going to be in the street. I feel passionate that streets should not be designed for the primary purpose of cars. I think streets and our roads should be also designed for pedestrians and cyclists and kids and cars and autonomous vehicles and alternative vehicles and a lot of things. These are just, again, not good. And finally, and potentially most importantly, on the self-policing, please do not do self-policing. It is a bad idea. Do not knock on your neighbor's door that you think is driving too fast and say, I want you to slow down. No matter how charming you think you are, they do not think you are charming. It's not going to go well. Do not do it. Call the police, call Alex, do something. Do not knock on a neighbor's door to confront them about speeding, no matter how charming you think it's going to be. It is a bad idea. So that was my kind of preview, and then I wanted to, let's talk about the staff recommendations.
Sure. So I had a couple points as well. First, I did want to apologize to the residents of Carval and at the end of Pitkin who didn't receive the notifications of the meetings. I think we've made some good points around we publicize everything, but one thing I've been saying for a year and a half is we can't expect everyone to go read every minute and every note in order to know what's going on. I think we've made a lot of great strides in our weekly email that comes out, so I really hope that everyone is on that list.
But just to clarify, the first meeting at the TSC, I think the residents showed up. There was no general notice for the two neighborhood meetings. There was a
Right.
mailing that went out to all the residents, the affected residents, plus I had a number of email addresses. So.
Right. And I really appreciate you doing that for the subsequent meetings. I was going to ask if we can do that going forward. I think it's important to note that while the residents of Carvel and Pitkin don't live in front of the speed zone, they still have to drive through it every day. It's their only way to get to their homes, so I think they should be involved in the decision. Kevin, I have to disagree with you. I think kids should not be playing in the street. If you live in a cul-de-sac, you probably paid a premium for that. So it's not really fair to say, oh, how come the kids on Carval get to play hockey and the kids on Pitkin don't? That said, I think that people should be able to make a safe crossing on Pitkin, right in the middle. And I'm concerned that right now is not possible, particularly at these stop signs. To me, as we're looking at this data, and I understand there may be some issues with the collection, the data to me doesn't really show a speed problem, but it shows a major problem with people not stopping at a stop sign, which is unacceptable. And that's where Alex, I'd like to talk a little bit about the solutions proposed. I'd like to see a solution that isn't about reducing the speed, but is about actually getting people to stop at the stop sign. And I don't know that we're doing that by putting a speed hump kind of far away from the stop signs. I think that may even be contributing to people not stopping at the stop sign because it's one slowdown after another.
So I'll go. I think a lot of you guys probably recognize me. I sat in on both the September and the October neighborhood meetings, and I think, the TSC in 2019, we've kind of reevaluated how we want to implement this rather than a TSC meeting and then we just go do stuff. I want to take, a moment to thank Alex and Carlos for putting those together. I thought they're exceptionally well run. I mean, between the two of them, it was almost 5 hours that residents invested in the process, prior to or following the TSC meeting in 2018. You've all been super patient. I think you've all been, and Carlos did a great job of making sure that everybody wanted to speak, got a chance to speak. And I think everybody was, for the most part, receptive to listening to everybody else. I think one of the things that, I think I'm slightly guilty of this now is, the analysis paralysis we're getting ourselves around the data. There's a tremendous amount of data, but at the end of the day, there's objective data and there's going to be a subjective interpretation of that data. And that's kind of where I'm at now, because if it was all objective, we wouldn't even need to be here. The reality is, and I went back and I looked, these roads were designed in 1992. The best-selling car in 1992 was a Ford F-150, 0 to 60 in 9 seconds. The best-selling car today is a Ford F-150 still, 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. It's 35% faster and it weighs 33% more. Things on our roads have changed. We've got to evaluate and reevaluate how our roads are used. In 1992, there weren't a gazillion Amazon delivery vehicles. Amazon didn't even exist. But we've got FedEx, Amazon, we got Uber, taxi drivers coming down our streets. They're the ones that I worry about the most, and they're the ones I see zipping through the stop signs. And back to what I thanked Bill for earlier, the stop sign compliance is not something we're going to change on our own here, because it's a very difficult problem that everyone's dealing with. It's the need to add friction to the road. So for me, the speed bump is a slam dunk. I drive over one every single day. It's not a big deal. I don't support the pedestrian crossing, until we have a defined path into downtown Superior in terms of what happens with that road, other than dead ending at Coal Creek. I think it's premature, but the speed bump for me, it's a subjective view of the data based on what I've seen, watching the video, and hearing from the neighbors that are most effective. But I will caution everybody in this room, this speed bump will be different, very different than the temporary one. The temporary one is abrupt. You've got to slow down and go over that thing really slow. The permanent one is not going to be as abrupt. People will go over it a little bit faster, and it won't necessarily have the same negative or positive impact that I think everybody might be hoping against. So, while I'm supportive of it, I want everyone to recognize it won't have the same speed and inhibitor effect that the previous temporary one did. So it's kind of my I feel.
So Alex, is that accurate? Because on Castle Peak, when we installed the temporary versus the permanent, I don't find that it made a difference between, oh wow, it's better now that it's the permanent. To me, it's the same, admittedly minor inconvenience, but I don't.
I think it's a little more abrupt for the temporary one.
Okay.
I think we still will have slowing, and it'll be effective the way we'll design it on for the permanent basis.
Okay.
My point is you can go over the permanent one a little faster than the temporary one.
Okay.
So instead of slowing down to 10 or 15 miles an hour, you slow down to 20.
Yeah.
Or, 18 to 20 is probably what.
And, I think you're right around the data around the analysis paralysis. I think I really appreciate people digging through the data. I think Carlos made an observation that he's never been part of a community before where people had so many requests for the raw data, including from all of us, because, I want to see the raw data and I want to slice it myself, and I don't, I want to play with things and, well, wait a minute, are we including the cars that are backing out going 11 miles an hour in the calculation? And you're right. Sometimes you just got to say enough on the analysis, and the original intent here was for traffic calming because cars are just going, we got a lot of cars and there are, on average, or at the 85%, not average, at the 85% level, it was a bit higher than any of us were comfortable with when it was 29, which was the previous data that showed it was 29. And we had some outliers that were completely unacceptable. We had some 40-mile-an-hour cars that were going by there every day. Whether or not they were delivery drivers or resident, we don't know, but that's just unacceptable and needs to be fixed. Through the process, we've identified another problem, which is stop sign compliance, but the installation of stop signs is one way, one tool in the bag for traffic calming. The best tool for traffic calming is to redesign our roads, but we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to cram down the roads and design it differently. And so you have to consider the tools that we have. A tool that we have, the protected pedestrian crosswalk, the neighborhood entrance, the raised crosswalks, the speed humps or stop signs, those are all tools that are available to us. But I agree, I don't think stop signs are great traffic calming measures because it doesn't add, and I like the term, friction to the road. What we need to do is either cram down the road so people don't drive so fast, or change the road surface. And so I'm also very supportive of the speed hump at $12,000. I want to continue to study this and make sure it's not a problem. It doesn't cost us a ton of money. I think it costs us a few $100s to lay down the rubber strips and figure this out and make sure we don't continue to have a problem. But I think the raised pedestrian crossing, I think we could hold off on that for now. When we redesign the road, rebuild the road at some point in the future, let's revisit that. But if we could solve this problem and get the speeds to a more comfortable level, I think we heard from the neighborhood, from the neighbors that are affected with this in their front yards, and I think their support. I understand that the neighbors up the street, I know there's not unanimous support. I did hear from one of the commenters almost a plea that this is a dangerous situation. If you could just work with your neighbors to try to mitigate what is identified as a risk and be tolerant of it, I think it would be great for the community.
Bill, one question I wanted to ask you about, I was really struck by the statistic that right now, coming from Rogan, 11% don't stop at all, and 16% from Iliff, again, don't stop at all. I just can't fathom not stopping at a stop sign. There have been times maybe when I haven't noticed one, but I can't fathom just blowing through a stop sign. And what I'm trying to figure out is what can we do about those intersections specifically? I'm, to Kevin's point, thinking about pedestrians, thinking about bikes in particular. I know when I'm out running, I look both ways, don't get me wrong, but I assume that when I'm at a stop sign that the traffic is going to stop, and those numbers are really concerning. I was talking to Matt today trying to understand, could we put in stop sign cameras? I understand it's not cost efficient to have an officer stationed there all the time, but what can we do to actually get people to stop at those?
Well, you certainly can make the stop signs more obvious. You can bring the borders with flashing red LEDs but I suspect the people that are running through the stop sign know very well there's a stop sign there. They're just going there. Part of the problem is when you put an all-way stop in place, you've stopped traffic, or you've told traffic on Pitkin to stop now at Rogan.
Right.
Well, okay, now somebody comes out of Rogan and say, well, I can't see them, they have to stop anyway, so I'm just gonna keep going. And so part of an all-way stop issue is that you can get some increased non-compliance on the original side street. And so that's just part of the deal. And that's why many traffic calming programs don't recommend that you use all-way stops as traffic calming devices. They assign right away.
Right.
And do other things to add the friction that we've been talking about. And you have lots of other tools. But why aren't people stopping? Because there's not a whole lot of traffic. That's, relatively speaking, it's a fairly low volume street. When you come out of Rogan or you come out of Iliff, there's most of the time you don't encounter another vehicle. Mm-hmm. You get used to not encountering another vehicle, and so you start rolling through that stop sign. Mm-hmm. And it's made even worse, not at Iliff, but at Rogan, where you also know that the main street, Pitkin, has been told to stop. So I don't know how to fix that specifically. That's a tough one.
Would stop sign cameras be a possibility?
Well, you could do cameras that record vehicles that don't stop. You could do that. I'm not sure the legality of it, to be honest with you.
So I spoke with Matt briefly about it, and we would need to, as a town, pass an ordinance that we're okay to do that.
Okay.
But have you seen those be effective?
I'm not aware of stop sign cameras being used. I mean, certainly red light cameras are very effective and can be very effective. And
From what I found, it looks like a couple states have implemented them with success. And again, I'm not concerned about the revenue from it. I'm more concerned with let's enforce what we have there before we.
right. And unfortunately, I don't have a ton of background on stop sign cameras and whether or not I think it would work here.
Okay.
But I think a couple things. First, I think we could ask for some additional policing around this. It's an issue. It would be interesting what our other neighborhoods have similar compliance issues, but maybe working with the sheriff to enforce some of that. The challenge, again, is of course our streets are so poorly designed. Guess what? When somebody sees a police car, they tend to stop, and so it's hard to catch the offenders. But that's life. In terms of the cameras, we did talk about that last year, and the sheriff's office Boulder County Sheriff does not like the cameras.
And that's what I was trying to understand is why, we can say, oh, we don't like cameras. Why? I mean,
Well, we should maybe
they're effective.
Right. Well,
So
I think it's perhaps a separate conversation but for the traffic calming mitigation, I think we heard from the tools in our toolbox for traffic calming. Stop signs are ranked pretty low. Best thing you can do is fix the darn road. So the 85th percentile was not an uncomfortable speed.
I suspect if you took out the stop signs on Pitkin at Rogan, the compliance coming out of Rogan would go up. More people would stop because they wouldn't think that Pitkin is going to stop. But that's not solving the problem either.
Right.
It's just,
So, Laura, again, I want to be respectful of people's time. So I think my recommendation, Neil's recommendation, is the speed hump designed at a level where somebody's not spilling their coffee going, 5-10 miles an hour, but they're tapping the brakes, they're going 15, 20, if that, or maybe even a notch over. Any comments around that?
I really would like to see us explore stop sign cameras. I understand that's not going to be covered tonight. I'm okay with that. I'd like us to explore, not necessarily tonight, but at least painted crosswalks perhaps at the stop signs. I think it is important to make sure that kids have a place to cross. It isn't just going all the way to Rock Creek.
Yeah, I think that is in the
We will,
they're going to stripe the Riverbend.
I don't think we have striped crosswalks.
There's nothing there right now.
Right, there's
And
no.
that's something we can take care of and get at least at this location, get
My hope is that that
crosswalks.
would at least help with the stop sign compliance as well, if people know that there's a crosswalk there versus just oh, they're going to stop, I don't need to stop. But I just really have grave concerns with the fact that so many people are not stopping at these stop signs.
I think offline, take a look at the video that they have. It's eye-opening.
Yep.
Okay, can we move on?
So why don't we move on? I know we have a lot to cover. So the TSC's recommendation is going to be the speed hump for $12,000. It will go to the board for, number one, it's $12,000. It's a lot of money. Like, let's be clear, it's $12,000. It's $12,000 that's not going to be a swing set. It's not going to be new paint on the fences. It's $12,000 we're taking out of the budget to do. It's a lot of money. It's got to go to the board. Second, the community obviously cares a lot about this. We get more people commenting on this than we do on some development applications, which is, fine. But it's obviously important to the community, so let's make sure the entire board is supportive. So we'll move it to the board meeting. It's not going to be in December. Realistically, it'll probably be the first meeting in January. Okay? Thanks.
Okay. The other area that we've been looking at is 76th and Sycamore. Again, we've been through data collection, eligibility review, and unlike some of the speeding issues, this is more of a pedestrian enhancement project that I don't think has specific criteria, but this is a major school bus stop, and a lot of concerns about pedestrians crossing to this wide intersection at 76 and Sycamore. So we've been through, let me get a couple of pictures here. Blow up a little bit more. So we have three options because as we started costing these improvements out, costs seem to get out of control. So this is kind of the full-blown concept where we would have pedestrian refuge on 76th Street, both the north and south approaches. We'd have rectangular flashing beacons at each location, crosswalks. We had we had 8 ADA ramps on this particular option. We did a curb extension to narrow the intersection where the park was and shadow the parking. So this got out of control. This is over a $300,000 project. We said, well, that's probably going to be difficult to support. So we said, well, what can we do to scale it down? So we came up with, is that
Should have been the next page, shouldn't it?
Next page, the presentation.
There we go. So we said, well, why don't we just do the south leg of the intersection, again, raised pedestrian islands. We would stripe out the left turn lanes on the southbound approach, but put a protected crossing with islands. We would have the curb extension on the southeast approach, only 2 ADA ramps across, I think, no, third ADA ramp, so we have 3 ADA ramps, this curb extension. In this case, this is a 4-way stop where we actually had stop signs instead of rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
So is this one, are you recommending a 4-way stop on this alternative?
I'm giving you 3 options, so. The option I would probably recommend is this one here. There's also.
Right, this is the $120,000 option.
Right. And then there's also another option in the, I could see.
It just didn't say the design element didn't say 4-way stop.
Right. It was, the costs were just a 4-way stop, not the rectangle flashing. If you wanted to make a rectangle flashing, you would add another $12,000 to the $120,000.
I guess what I'm asking is, with the last interim design, not this one with the 4-way stop, the $120,000, should this also include a 4-way stop, or this is still a 2-way stop with the pedestrian refuge and the RRFB?
this is the way it's drawn up, and the $120,000 cost was a four-way stop.
Okay.
Okay.
It doesn't say that.
Sorry about that, yeah.
Okay.
And then if we're going to have a four-way stop, you could do it with striping, a couple stop signs, be $1,000 if you wanted to eliminate the left turn lanes, make the intersection simpler so you wouldn't have multiple lanes that you would cross with a four-way stop as you're looking at it all. Would be about $20,000 in restriping. In terms of the traffic volumes, the traffic volumes on Sycamore are actually a little higher than the traffic volumes on 76th Street. So this is and you may want to talk about four-way stops.
Yeah, this is one that I would support as an all-way stop because the traffic volumes on the approaches is fairly balanced.
Right.
And that's one of the key criteria for supporting an all-way stop. And so in this case, you could do an all-way stop. Here, you've built more road than you need. And so figuring out a way to narrow the approaches, get rid of some of the turn lanes that you don't need, have single approach lanes to the all-way stop condition would still process the traffic well and be a lower cost but reasonably safe solution for crossing pedestrians.
So Bill, is your recommendation the $21,000 last design or the $120,000 design with the RRFB?
Well, the previous one, the 120,000 with, you wouldn't put an RRFB if that was an all-way stop. So as I look at that one, it could be either an all-way stop or maintain a two-way stop and put an RRFB on the south leg.
That's what I was asking. That's why I was out.
Yeah, so in my recommendation for the money would be to go to the next alternative, narrow the intersection to single lane approaches, make it an all-way stop, and then you don't need the RRFB. That's significantly less expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all that information. I think the issue for me here is the people crossing here they're short, they're really young. You know, it's the kids coming and going for the bus and going to Founders Park. And I'll be honest, some of the volume and some of the size of the vehicles moving on the street have frightened me. And I think that's why the residents that's been pushing this for as long as she has, even the four-way stop, which I think is going to be a huge improvement, may not be enough. And I guess I'm a little confused in terms of why we're calling these interim designs. I think this one's an interim design, the other one's a preferred interim design.
I'm sorry, this is the ultimate design.
So this is what we're recommending at some point when we reconstruct the road.
We could ultimately build this, but this could be an interim to get
until we get there. Okay.
Because you can do this.
And then when would we build the ultimate? When would we build the ultimate?
Whenever we reconstruct the roads.
Or have money.
Yeah, I mean, we put $100,000 in the budget out of SMID for this intersection. It doesn't mean we have to spend it. It's just a function of, and one of the things I'd asked Alex is of the 120, how does it break down? Because, the ADA ramps, there's 24,000 of the 120, and that's kind of the thing. It's like, we have to do this, but we don't have to do it when we have to tear up the road, and if we're tearing up the road, we got to do it anyway. So it's a little disingenuous in my mind to include that in the cost, because we're doing it, but we're not doing the ADA ramps because of traffic calming measures. We're having to do it because we have to.
The other consideration is that we would probably want to rebuild, probably overlay 76th Street at some point in the future. Doesn't need it right away, but in the next 5 years, we actually have a program to do something with 76th. So if you want to think interim, or you can accelerate that and say, hey, let's go ahead and do this and do the whole project if you want. I think there's money in SMID to do that. Mm-hmm. We just had $100,000 is what we had budgeted.
We've sort of, I don't want to redesign it on the fly, but, sort of the RFBs, but not do the bulb outs, take out the left turn lanes. I mean, there's things that we could do, to kind of get a little creative to create that pedestrian refuge, which, I look at a road like Colton and the new one on Colton, and it's phenomenal, right? I've already seen dozens of people using it because those flashing lights you can see them for miles away. So, I mean, this intersection to me, and I'd love to hear from Officer Wolf, you know, because I know we asked if there's, you know, because I think the issue was a lot of people weren't even stopping for the bus, you know, and again, you know, in terms of trying to fix bad driving behavior, you know, nothing we do here is going to do that very easily.
And I'll defer to Bill, but I would rather have a four-way stop here at this intersection. That's a natural four-way stop. RFB at Colton is a mid-block. You're at a narrow, you don't have the turn lanes, whatever. You're at a narrow area, and that's a good application for our RFB.
True.
Okay. Any additional questions or public comment on this?
Again, you know, this will return to the board, so if you want us to refine any of these, the interim option.
Let's have public comment. I mean, I have a thought, but before, I want to hear from public, please.
John Barr. I'm at 3235 Basalt Court. Nowhere near here, but I drive by it. Kevin, something you said made me think that, you know, you said our streets are way too wide, and you've got some designs here putting some, you call it a bulb out. That seems like an expensive solution. Maybe, I think the next design showed some parking there. Maybe you just put some paint on the street, put some parking spots.
There already is parking there.
There's already parking there. Yeah, I mean, my idea is some of these places where we have streets that are too wide, put some parking paint down, and it could be a lot cheaper. And you necessarily narrow the street that way.
Yeah, this used to be a 4-lane stretch right there, and we've restriped it for 2 lanes with parking.
Thanks.
Thanks. Any additional public comment? Thoughts?
I want to hear your great idea, Kevin.
I mean, I don't know if it's a great idea, but I like the idea of doing something. I'm sympathetic to this particular resident and this community. And the fact the bus is there, you know, this should have been thought about years ago, right? I mean, I want the 4-way stop sign like tomorrow. If we do the expensive design, it's, you know, we're bidding it out and we're doing the construction in the spring, and best case scenario, it's, you know, next September where the road's available. I want the stop signs, you know, and restriping, I suppose the weather has to be good, but if we get a stretch of decent weather, we could do the restriping and we could do the stop signs within 30 to 45 days, right? I mean, I'm not making that up. It's pretty.
Well, yeah, striping would have to be temporary striping just at this time of year, but we could have it done in the spring.
And we don't need a warrant or anything. You don't need stop sign warrant analysis. It's all.
I think Bill and I, we've looked at the data and we feel that it meets the warrant.
So I like to just doing the interim immediately and then fixing this more long-term and somehow coupling it with a overlay. So we're not spending $120,000. But I really wish that resident who'd pushed for it I wish she was here tonight. So, but she'll, you know, we could make sure she's here at the board meeting.
I agree with that, Kevin.
So, and this is staff's recommendation to go with the interim 4-way stop and then a more permanent solution at a later date.
And thinking about it, I mean, the other interim, the $120,000 was really to match the budget, but I'd like to have the 4-way stop and then look at when we can program the overlay improvements and then do the permanent solution at the same time we do the overlay.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes tremendous sense to me because I think, what is it, page 27, the visual indicators that you have in there, I think is a huge improvement already. Getting rid of the left turn lanes, I think, is going to make a big difference. And then, you know, we do the ultimate design.
Eliminating the left turn lane with the 4-way stop.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
All right. We're cranking now. Okay, get back. So Rock Creek Circle, we had a neighborhood meeting this past summer, and we had a survey. One of the things that came out was a mid-block pedestrian crossing on Colton, and that was implemented with the Colton project. It was recently completed. We also, I think the TSC asked us to look at speed radar signs, and we're going to try to get those in as well. And then they wanted to look at some designs for the Yarrow and intersections with Rock Creek Circle. And this is one concept we came in, the East Yarrow and the West Yarrow and East Yarrow intersections, and what we had come up with the concept was to have a pedestrian refuge with our RFB in the middle, crosswalk, protected crosswalk. We also had islands kind of shadowing the parking, creating kind of a chicane effect, so you have to alter your direction of travel going through the intersections. So you have protected crossings plus some a chicane effect with those islands. The cost of each of these would be about $100,000. If you wanted to eliminate the islands that shadow the parking, that would take about $30,000 off each of those intersections. So looking for direction from the board of how to proceed. Bill?
And just clarification, when you say eliminate the islands, you mean eliminate the bulb outs on either side that narrow, that shadow the
These two
parking.
islands.
Yep.
Keep that. So we would do this.
Yep.
So Alex, I think I heard you say that, because out of the neighborhood meeting, one of the sort of consensus ideas were the speed radar signs.
Yes.
Those are going to go up this spring?
Yeah, we just need to get them ordered and get them installed. And TSC has already given us direction.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're still on board to go there. Okay.
So Alex and Bill, do you, just looking at how somewhat close these are together, and yet I realize they're a full block apart, would you both recommend that we do both of these, or would one help?
Well, it was hard to decide.
I know it's hard to pick one.
Which one, and then there's Castle Peak as well. So there's three intersections that need some treatment, and you have all the people in the summit that want to go to the open space on the other side. So there's a lot of school crossings, pedestrian crossings. So they're.
Do we think two are needed though?
We could try one. We have $100,000 budgeted for traffic calming in 2020. We've already spent 12, so don't have money to do all, both of them.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm wondering is if money were an object, we would want these two even though they're close together?
I would support, my opinion is I would support them both. Yes, you're calling them close together, but they're really not.
They're still a full block
fairly
apart.
far
I get
apart.
that.
This is one of the wider, faster streets that I've experienced around the community. And there's green space on the south side of both of them, and big apartments on the north. So there's reason to cross it both. They're not that close together. Their speeds are fairly high through this area, and I think these would be excellent to have two.
Okay.
Yeah, worth noting as well, we're trying to, we're obviously going to activate 1500 Colton. And so I would hope that we have people from Yarrow and Castle Peak that are walking.
Not driving.
Not driving, walking. So it's not, I think if you were doing a pedestrian study, you'd find more people on the summit walking over to the green space. I think we'll probably see more people walking towards the summit to 1500 Colton once that gets activated.
Sandy Hammerly, 2855 Rock Creek Circle, Summit at Rock Creek. I had not seen either of these recommendations until today, and I can assure you that most of the residents at the Summit at Rock Creek have not seen them. I can't comment on how any of them would feel. I think they're both great, but I'm not real sure how I feel about $200,000. As a member of the Board of Trustees. Literally, I don't think our residents have seen them. And I would be hard-pressed to choose one or the other because they solve two very different problems. Particularly, the one that's the most important for me is the one coming up the hill from Starbucks. And we have a massive speed problem there, massive speed problem. And if this is the only way we can slow it down, we got to do it. But we also have the issue at the other one of the safety of our children who are crossing there to get to school. And that is also the most direct route. If you're going to cut through the summit and go down with our nice new crosswalk on Colton, that's probably where you're going to cut across if you're coming from Yarrow. So I don't know whether I wonder about the two bulb outs and whether they would achieve the same effect as much as the things in the middle of the road. So you could save $60,000 on the two of them and not do that. The sooner we can get those speed signs up, the better. The speed is excessive. It's really out of control at this point. And just the other morning, I was leaving to go to work, trying to get out of the summit, and a child was trying to cross from the Yarrow side, and a car came around from the west side coming east and almost took the kid out. Yep. So, and the kid stopped like he was supposed to, but the car was going so fast. It was totally dangerous for the kid. So we got to do something to slow it down there. I like what I see, but I don't like the price. So.
Yeah, Alex, the price is a great question because, there's definitely economies of scale here. If we bunch up, in this case, we're 3 or 4 already, how much do we get the cost to go down? Because your mob fee will go down and, obviously you got the engineering, you got concrete, but, some of the.
Right, it may go down 10%. I don't think you're looking at 30 to 40%.
Okay.
10% is about all you can do by bundling them like that. Because they're all kind of separate projects. You have traffic control at each one, and you got to dig and put the islands in and so forth. You have the RFPs that don't really apply.
I had one other comment that came up from some folks in the summit. They were just asking whether it would even make sense just to put those things that stand up in the middle of the street. They got a lot of them over in Louisville that just say pedestrian crosswalk. I think part of the problem we have is that you don't know you're coming up on those pedestrian crosswalks, and so they don't create an awareness. So I wonder whether even if temporarily we put those up, that might save us some money if we saw it actually made a difference, because it would create awareness that I just think people don't see the crosswalks right now.
I think Trustee Hammerly is absolutely right. Those, and there are a couple pictures of them on page 27, along with the speed radar signs, I think will create a lot more awareness than we have on the street right now.
Sure, we could take the ones off of 76th Street, put them here, and then speed radar, and then go back and see if we've had any impact on the speeds.
I'd actually recommend keeping the ones on 76th Street just to remind, because the issue we have, and I've nearly been run over in the middle of crosswalks.
Right, but we'll have 4-way stops.
Okay, good point. You will have a 4-way stop. That's a good point. Okay.
John Barr again. I have not seen the speed studies on Rock Creek Circle. I do think that the cars are going too fast for the crosswalks. I'm not convinced that they're actually speeding. I actually drive that every day, and I tend to go 25. I think the speed limit may be a little too high. Maybe they're going too fast. I don't know. I think these intersections have two very different problems. I run these every day. This intersection here on the right, you're coming up the hill and you can't actually see that there's anybody in the crosswalk. Yeah. And you don't know there's one there.
Right.
This one, people are just not stopping because they may not see it. Yeah.
And that one, because it's right on the straightaway, you're facing straight into the sun.
Yes.
I know. I've faced
too.
That where I just can't see somebody ahead.
Yeah. So I cross this every day, and you have to look and make sure there's no cars coming because they won't stop.
Yep.
I think that the solution we have on Rock Creek Parkway now and on Colton with the flashing lights.
We would have those here.
You would have those here. Okay, I think that would solve all of this. In fact, I don't think you need the island. I don't think you need, maybe we need a lower speed limit. 30 seems a little fast on that. But anyway, with those, I think, how much are those per?
They're about $12,000. $12,000.
Okay.
Yeah, Alex, I think we're on to something. First, thank you. I think doing something on these two intersections is probably important. You know, it's going to be impossible to pick one. So, but the cost is just, I think going back to a redesign, what can we do without the pedestrian island? Can you do something, you know, can we find something in the $30,000 each range that includes a flashing beacon? So,
sure.
I personally would be interested in the pedestrian island on the West Yarrow intersection and then the flashing beacons on the east one, particularly since the east one, and now someone's going to tell me my scale is off, but the east one to me seems to be very close to the island that's a little bit further east.
problem is, if anybody's crossing at the east one and you're going to the Safeway, or you're going to 1500 Colton, you're doing what I do, and you're actually crossing right in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Which is bad.
True, but what I'm wondering is for that particular one, could we be better served with the flashing pedestrian cross rather than an island there?
The issue is not just pedestrians. The issue is, and the traffic study showed it, that the speed coming up the hill from Starbucks was generally, people were coming up there much faster than the 25 mile per hour speed limit. So we got to figure out some way to convince people to slow down before they convince it. That's why I suggested that we put the thing in the middle of the road. When we designed this and Alex put the island in, we thought it would slow traffic down. It did to a point. But the problem is, as soon as they pass that island, they kick their speed up again. And I know you guys don't, people driving down Rock Creek Circle don't notice it, but when you're one of the 226 people who lives in the summit at Rock Creek and tries to get out onto Rock Creek Circle, we are at a massive disadvantage, and we need the traffic slowed down on this street, particularly coming up that hill.
Alex, and I apologize because we may have had the same conversation 6 months ago. I mean, did we ever explore a four-way stop at, where Yarrow crosses Rock Creek Circle?
Again, we would have the same issue. Which intersection to?
Well, I mean, to start with, yeah, I agree.
But you look at these, you probably have at least maybe at Yarrow or Castle Peak, probably have more traffic coming out of those than you do on Rock Creek Circle. Yep. I mean, there's 2,800 on Castle Peak, for example, that are entering, and there's probably more coming out than going in on Rock Creek Circle. So there are, the side streets have a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
But I think to Sandy's point, at the Castle Peak intersection, you don't have as many people speeding up from the west side because it's not as much.
That one would have more traffic. These, you'll see the traffic counts in a minute, what's on Yarrow.
Right.
They're kind of split. The Yarrow one is split. Castle Peak is kind of concentrated. But that's definitely something we can look at in terms of whether any of the warrants met for those. But
if you really wanted to do that, though, then your better option would be to put the flashing beacon on the other side.
What do you mean on the other side?
On the other side, on the Starbucks side of the road.
Well, I think we're going to have
the eastern side.
We're going to have a speed radar sign somewhere in that area.
Okay. All right. So hopefully the speed radar addresses some of it. Okay. All right.
So you have speed radar for the speed and then flashing beacon for the peds that want to cross.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if pedestrians cross there.
Right.
I mean, I know I don't.
At East Yarrow or at West Yarrow?
At East Yarrow going in that direction, I frankly see everybody doing exactly what I do, because I also drive that all the time. I both drive it, run it, bike it, and staying on a crosswalk that basically is, you're walking west to go east,
That's always where I cross when I'm
and
down there.
you don't cut the corner?
I guess I cross from the,
I'm pulling out the laser pointer. Do we
yes,
have one?
please.
You crossing like this?
Yep.
Oh, no, I don't do that because it's illegal. I cross across. I'm very careful to only go
I
straight.
cross illegally here, and I constantly see pedestrians right in the middle of the intersection, doing exactly what I'm doing. When I'm driving up, going the speed limit, not on my phone, I see pedestrians here because they're walking their dog or they're walking their kid or whoever down to the turf field or to Starbucks or to Safeway. And anyway, so that's why if we're gonna spend $100,000 doing something here, just wanna make sure that, Sandy's point, the original intent here is traffic calming, right? So this may not be, I don't see how this calms traffic for people coming up this way. But we also have a safety issue. We definitely need crosswalks. Let's just make sure we put the crosswalks. We have crosswalks today. Some type of enhanced crosswalk feature.
Yeah.
And let's put it in the right place.
It did not occur to me that anyone would ever cross on the diagonal.
But now that I say
I'm
that,
too
you'll
much of a
notice it all the
rule
time.
follower. All right.
So Alex, do you think, $100,000 is a ton. Can we sharpen a pencil and see what we could do around this that maybe does include the flashing beacon, that includes the yellow?
And we apologize because we developed the concepts and then we're taking it to you. Well, let's cost them out. And then we get, kind of a shocker. So we didn't have a chance to go back and take a look. And it sounds like maybe 30,000 an intersection or 30,000 total in this area.
Well, if the budget's 100, I think everybody in this room wants to get as much improvement across town as possible for the limited amount of dollars. So, whatever we can do in small dollars per intersection, I think will at least allow us to go as far as possible until we do the full redesign or the redevelopment of these roads and put it all in at the same time.
Well, let's have a good discussion because we went through the process. Now we're putting some reality on what the measures are.
Yeah.
And so now we have to make some choices and go back and rethink some of the things that we're trying to do here.
And I think for the future proposal, can we take an approach that I know you've done in the past, Alex, where you're detailing out the bulb out is this much, the island is this much, so that if need be, we can kind of have a menu of things to choose from rather than just all or nothing. Thanks.
Yeah, I asked for that for the Sycamore, and while the refuge is 15 grand, there's so many other costs associated with it. It gets really difficult to have the a la carte menu for all this.
Yep.
Okay, I think we got our direction on that. Now is Yarrow next? Yep. Is Yarrow next or is that?
Yarrow, yep.
Okay, so we had gotten a request several months ago, and we started collecting data, and apologize that we didn't get on this sooner. So we collected data on Yarrow. I know the request was probably down in this area here, but we said, well, let's look at all of Yarrow. What are the traffic counts? What are the 85th percentile speeds? And so this is the type of data that we collected. And you can see almost 900 vehicles per day, kind of at the north end of West Yarrow, 1165, kind of as you get towards the north end of East Yarrow. Obviously down at the corner here, very low ADT, 181, and then 685, kind of at the midpoint of West Yarrow, and 537 over on East Yarrow at the upper end. I wanted to go through.
Before you do, Alex, just to point out that we show the combination of traffic in both directions, two-directional ADT, and then the speed that's listed is the higher of the two directions where we had directional speed data. We showed the highest of the two, just for simplicity.
So we tried to give you in the memos, and there's 3 memos, kind of very similar format, to give you traffic speeds, to give you 85th percentiles in each direction. And then this is actually a misnomer in terms of how we were labeling these. Percentage exceeding 25 mile an hour speed limit. It should have said percentage at 25 miles an hour or greater. So that's a little different than was stated here. And Bill, you may want to comment on that.
Yeah, because the way the speed data was collected, the speeds were done in 3 mile an hour bins. And so there was a bin that was from 25 to 27 and then 28 to 30 and so forth. And the bin that was 25 to 27, if you take that as these percentages are correct, if you make the change that Alex just described, it
So
includes the folks that are going 25 miles an hour as well.
So I get that the current data collection company we're using gives us, they're setting these 3 mile an hour bins and they're getting us, hard copy printouts. If they can't change with the time to get the data that we can then change the bins, we need to find a different data collection entity.
No, the bins can be changed and all the data is for each one of them.
I understand, but even I went on their website today and they brag about, their clients get computer printed handouts,
Right.
of the data. It's like shocking that, please communicate that you represent a community that requires the raw data in whatever format,
Sure.
I don't care if it's Excel or, comma delimited, whatever format, but we need the data.
Okay.
And if they can't get it, we'll find a new vendor.
Sure. So,
The bin, right, I think we all get the bin explanation.
okay, so we had, as I mentioned at opening the meeting, we have 2 criteria in our traffic calming guidelines. One is the 85th percentile speed, the other is traffic volume. So in this, we have a 500 vehicle per day kind of threshold where traffic calming measures will be implemented. So all 4 out of the 5 locations that we counted met that criteria. But the 85th percentile speed, none of those were over 30 miles an hour or 5 miles over the posted speed. Also talks about accidents. So this is the accident data, 2 accidents in the 2011 to 2018 time period on West Yarrow, 4 on East Yarrow, and 3 of them were in a very close location. So, and I can show you the map, and I can go back and research, is that occurring at the same location each time? And but I didn't have a chance to do it. On Yarrow, in terms of cut-through traffic, it's kind of a closed loop, so you really not going anywhere else if you're on Yarrow, unlike some of the other streets like Wildona and so forth. Yeah. Presence of school crossings. There isn't a school close. I mean, there's school kids walking, but there weren't any painted crosswalks in the area other than at the ends. Presence of nearby pedestrian generators. There's the open space trail to the north and east. There is a trail crossing that could be a potential location for a raised crosswalk.
Alex, I don't want to rush you. I just want to talk housekeeping.
Yeah.
I have to pick up a kid. I'm going to text Kirsty,
Sure.
but there's a good chance I'm going to need to leave at about 11 minutes after the hour.
Sure.
So unless somebody responds to my text.
Right. Well, this is kind of generating because they're all kind of in this same mode. I wanted to bring out, I do talk about back out driveways and others that are affected, and the street width and grades. Yarrow does have some grade issues, especially on the south end. So I talk about eligibility criteria, and 4 sites exceed the volume threshold, but all the sites don't meet the 85th percentile speed threshold. And then here's where I talk about other criteria and our design standards that we implement now. And I developed these back in 2003, looking at some other areas and the whole issue of let's design our streets with traffic calming built in. And I came up with this criteria that we have, that if you have an unimpeded street length on a local street of greater than 1,200 feet, that means there's no stop signs, there's no sharp curves, there's no speed humps, and you have a volume that exceeds 500, that would be a good candidate to put some traffic calming feature, because you're going to tend to have speeds, you're going to pick up speeds and get to speeds that are, fairly high. A local street that has a volume between 500 and 2,000, look at 900 feet, and then a minor collector, 900 feet. So comparing that with what Yarrow has now, there's, on East Yarrow, there's an unimpeded speed limit of 1,830 feet, and 1,760 feet on West Yarrow. You total that up, that's over half a mile without anything that would cause you to stop or slow down. So, and the speeds, or the curves are all on design speeds of 30 to 35 miles an hour. So here's one criteria that we haven't talked about, but for new streets, this is what we would apply. So before we go much further, all the other three are kind of in the similar categories. If you want to just use our existing criteria, we would stop and say it doesn't meet our existing criteria. If you want to use this other, we could look at unimpeded street segment lengths. So I'd like your reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, think about the other one, Torrey's Peak. There's a significant amount of cut-through traffic, which kind of, is very different than Yarrow. Right. And I think that's the part that makes it challenging to try to, apply the same lens to these different streets.
I was really surprised to see the 85 percentile at 26, 27, and 29 at one point. And even it's a weird spot that it was 29. It was, on a turn. I mean, that one to me was alarming. It's near, what do we call it, Pirate Park? Mm-hmm. It's near Pirate Park. Yeah. It's on a turn. That's an example for where I would have wanted to see the raw data, is that, I mean, it literally didn't even make any sense to me. How are those cars going 29 miles per hour? When it feels like those are the people that should be winding down, going into driveways, not accelerating down a hill. So that was a bit of a mystery to me. But it's 537 cars, which is, a lot of cars.
Right.
The other thing is there's a lot of cars, our theory is that the narrower the streets, and when cars are actually parked on the street, it should help slow down traffic. That hasn't, there's probably more cars parked on Yarrow than any other street in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but we're not getting speeds of 30, 33 miles an hour. We're
Okay,
getting,
maybe that's good that we're not getting speeds of 30, 33, but a car going 29 miles per hour, or, potentially a lot higher, with cars parked there and balls running in the street, I'm really concerned about. I don't know what the solution is. If we want to drop, I'd be down with doing a temporary speed bump or two somewhere on this, but I don't know where to place it based around the data.
Right.
all right, well, one thing, because we have this criteria, if you want to revise the criteria and look at some other criteria, which I'm suggesting.
It's also the criteria, criteria we do have, there's a bullet point in the criteria that is recommended.
Other things, right.
Right, other things. So we have the ability to, the criteria are guidelines. They're not. I do want to be careful though, if we put a speed bump on East Yarrow, we don't get everybody driving over to West Yarrow to
going
avoid
across
the speed bump.
Right.
So whatever we do, we need to do something in parallel.
Yep.
On the other side. But I think this to me warrants the temporary speed bump and
or neighborhood outreach, because we're at the point, we had a request submitted, we did our data collection. If the TSC thinks that we should do something, let's go ask the neighborhood. And one of the issues we're going to have here is where you put it, because there's literally, driveways all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
So you need some volunteers that want it in front of their house, and there's probably four houses in most cases that are going to be affected.
Okay.
So if that's your direction, we can go to our next step and say, yeah, something should be done, and go out and start conducting, neighborhood meetings and get more input, because we've had, a localized group, of 8 or 10 people or whatever that was that asked for this, and here's the speed data. Now that we go to a more broader group, and I agree we should do both ends of Yarrow, make sure everybody's involved, not just that one location.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully on board with the neighborhood meetings because, my philosophy is even at 29 miles per hour, that's unacceptable. I mean, the chart that we have in here of the number of fatalities at that speed, it increases significantly, and I think that, and I forgot where pyrocars is, that's, another piece of it that we got to factor in here. Kids are crossing the street to get there. Yeah, I think the neighborhood could probably have some really good ideas on how to address it.
There's less open space in this neighborhood. This is where kids are playing in the streets.
It's really dense.
Right.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
I'm supportive of a neighborhood meeting. I just also, I want us to be careful that any car that slows down is safer. But if we want to keep saying we're going to do the safest thing to do is ban cars from all of Superior and make people walk everywhere. So I want to make sure that we don't just fall on this fallacy of, wow, it's safer if we can reduce the traffic from 25 to 24 or 29 to 28. Because yes, it's always going to be safer when the cars get slower, and it's going to be even safer if we can have no traffic everywhere, but that doesn't mean that that's what we should do. So if we have residents who are raising this as a concern, which we do, I think it makes sense for us to go to the neighbors and see what they'd like. I don't want us to come down heavy-handed and say, gosh, this is too fast, it's this speed, when I think we don't know yet, particularly because, to Kevin's point, we don't have all the data.
I'll be clear. This is cars going, these houses are close together, cars going 29 miles an hour that's too fast. It's too fast. If the data are accurate, I believe that they are, we have to do something about this, which is some type of traffic calming initiative. Again, we have a lot of tools in our bag. Traffic calming initiatives could be just community outreach. Please slow down. That's a possible tool. I don't think it's very effective, but it is a tool. Policing is a tool. This is a very challenging neighborhood to police because there's literally nowhere to park. But yes, we need some traffic calming strategies, engage in the community to educate them around the data that we've collected, the tools in the toolbox. We're now getting a little bit better at this. So.
All right. In the interest of moving on, is there anybody from Yarrow you want to? Anybody from the Yarrow neighborhood? No. Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like, again, the speeds are too high. Could we reduce the speed to 20? We change the speed limit.
We talked about it. Now I'm breaking a rule that we should engage on the public, but yes, there is a thought. There's a movement. 20 is plenty. And other communities have adopted that movement. It's not something that we've spent a lot of time talking about outside of, maybe it could be voluntary. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter the posted speed limit is ignored. People drive to the design of the road. And so that's what people drive.
I would say that people drive what they're comfortable driving.
Yeah.
And that includes in that computation what the speed limit is.
Right. How comfortable they are with the speed limit.
So if the speed limit is 20 and they feel comfortable going 5 over,
right,
they'll do 25. I think that I just want to raise this. I have seen in Superior, we are spending so much money on traffic calming, and I'm not sure we're always solving the right problem.
Yes.
So I think I said this like 6 months ago when we started talking about Castle Peak. It's if we can find a way to solve this problem cheaper, just by changing the speed limit to 20, think of how much money we could save.
Thank you.
Actually, Alex, along those lines, with Coal Creek, we dropped the speed limit from 35 to 25. I know there's a number of people who are still driving 35. Have we set a target date to try to collect data and see if the sign change what kind of impact the sign change has had?
We took some data, but we'll take some data in the spring when we have some.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, quickly on.
Do you need to bail?
I do. Sorry, are we on to Sagamore?
Torrey's.
I mean, to Torrey's.
Torrey's Peak. Here's the data on, again, we got a request on Torrey's Peak. We actually did both Topaz and Torrey's Peak. We got 432 on Topaz with an 85th percentile, 25 miles an hour. And then on Torrey's Peak, 765 with the speed limit, 85th percentile, 25. Again, that's at these locations, traffic volumes are probably much higher on Torrey's Peak at the ends. In terms of data, again, right at the 25 mile an hour posted speed is the 85th percentile. There's the volumes, traffic accidents, 1 on Topaz and 3 on Torrey's Peak. There is an issue with cut-through traffic on Torrey's Peak. There's probably, I'm estimating 300-400 vehicles per day cutting through because of the school going to the El Dorado K-8 schools.
Going from like Yarrow over to Eldo, you mean?
No, yeah.
Where is the cut through? I'm not following. Like going from where to where?
I would think maybe from the summit going to.
Right. Summit and Yarrow to Eldo. Okay. That's what I thought. Just checking. Thanks.
There's some pedestrian generators.
I wouldn't even, to be honest, Alex, I'm not even sure I'd call that cut through.
Right.
It's not even just Summit though.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would argue that the cut through would be if somebody's coming from
Like
El Dorado.
Yeah.
And they're somehow, they're on the other side of Rock Creek and they're cutting through. That feels like cut through. But if you live in the summit,
Right.
you're not going to go down to Colton. Nobody's doing that.
Yeah. Same with Yarrow people.
Yeah, if you live in Yarrow and your
the
kid
main way
goes to
go.
Eldo, that's what you're doing. Go ahead if you have a comment, if you wouldn't mind just coming up.
Hi, so I'm Judy Schreier, and I'm actually the one who initiated this whole thing. So I live on the first house that is on North Torrey's Peak proper, right before you get to Topaz. So a lot of the kids come from that Topaz neighborhood, off of Topaz and all that area off of neighborhood, and they use that Jade path, the path that cuts across Jade. They cut across Torrey's Peak on that crosswalk. So there's a lot of traffic coming across, and I've seen numerous drivers. I'm a crossing guard over to El Dorado, so one day I actually just kind of sat around at that crosswalk, and I watched people, like kids will stand there and people will just drive through even the crosswalk. I have put up countless signs. I've only been there a little over a year and a half, and I've put up countless signs. I'm the crazy lady that's got all these signs. Please slow down. Your kids live here. Drive like your kids live here. All those kooky signs. I've put those up. Had my neighbors put them up. I've actually had 3 or 4 of them destroyed, and I bought new ones and put them back out. I don't know who destroys them. And I have a back out driveway that slopes down into the street. People come off of, either direction. But one day last spring in the snow, I was sliding down my driveway and people were some guy in particular was speeding down in an SUV and I couldn't even stop because I was sliding down my driveway and I laid on my horn. He just drove on by. No, nothing. So I don't know. My kids are, they don't play in the street, but they cross the street a lot to get to the open space. There's a lot of kids in that neighborhood right now. So And being that I'm new, that's what I was like, why is all this being done on Castle Peak and nothing has been done to calm the traffic on our street?
What was the 85th percentile on Castle Peak, Alex? Do you remember?
I think it was in that area in the 26, 27, if not close to speed limit.
I thought it was higher than that.
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, I can't leave I have to go. So, but I'm supportive of moving towards that community engagement, and I agree with, I think we're going to have a lot more speed bumps in this town, and this town may be known as the speed bump town, but that's
And islands.
That's not a bad outcome for me if it gets people to slow down. I get that that's disruptive to a lot of people with cars, but I think we need to be better about designing and installing the speed bumps and getting something that 3.5 inches. I think no matter how fancy your sports car is, you should be able to get over it. And that's, but I'm personally supportive of moving to the next step. We're engaging the community and starting to see data, seeing if we can move the needle based on the temporary speed bump. With that, I got to apologize because I didn't mean to come. Okay. Follow me. Yes. Thanks. All right. Again, apologies.
And we do have a kind of a natural way of, there is a trail crossing here, so we could combine a raised pedestrian crossing to make it work at that location that kind of breaks up that long stretch.
And that's just east of Jade Court?
Right.
Yeah.
And, that's one area, but again, we would go out to the whole neighborhood and find out what some of the other issues are and make sure we try to address them. And finally, we have several people here about Riverbend and Akron.
So sorry, on Tories, what's the resolution that we're going to propose
We
here?
will go out for
Neighborhood meetings? Okay. I mean, to Kevin's point, I'm not able to pull up the speed data for Castle Peak, but we were looking at 2,700 vehicles per day there, so very different than what we're looking at here for Tories.
Right.
I don't know, Tories to me, as I see the number of vehicles per day and I see that it's at 25, I don't know that this warrants progressive.
I mean, I'll disagree. I mean, since we lost Kevin, now we're split. I think, there's definitely concerns here. There's a lot of kids that walk here. I've seen a lot of kids, and even at 25, this is my issue, is even though the 85th percentile is 25, there's still 15% of set of 800 cars. That's, almost 100 cars per day that are exceeding the speed limit. And, what's interesting when you talk about percentiles is, that 15%, it's like, oh, it's just 15%. But some of those cars are going 40 miles an hour, right? Which is insane and ridiculous and unacceptable. So personally, I think the 85th percentile at 25 is too high. I'd like to see that dialed down in terms of our threshold. But for now, I think there's enough, there's enough people that sign this thing that it's worth progressing. There's enough anecdotal data as well that there's something that can be done here. I mean, and quite honestly, a raised pedestrian crossing at that spot, we should have done that at the beginning. That's what we're doing in downtown Superior, and it's what we should be doing all over the rest of this town.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm okay with moving on to the neighborhood meetings. My whole thing throughout all of this is I just feel like we're taking a one-off approach to everything, rather than, looking at one spot at a time versus trying to put together a more comprehensive plan for the town around where are the fastest areas. This is throughout all of this, and Mr. Fryer, absolutely no disrespect to you. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. But throughout all of the traffic calming we go through, it just feels to me like a squeaky wheel gets the grease on this. And I don't like that approach to things. I think we need to identify objectively where are the most dangerous places, where should we be spending our dollars on traffic calming, given that we have such a finite budget. I think this is probably a great spot because we do have all the kids going through there to get to school. But I just am really worried that we look at one area at a time versus taking a big map of the town, figuring out what the pedestrian paths are and looking at those.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think it's just a question of, expediency. To do that, we should have started that years ago. Trying to collect the data will take us a very long time to do. for now, let's be reactive. Let's fix the things that we know have problems. And in addition, I don't disagree. Let's do some parallel work in terms of exploring in aggregate, because there's economies of scale here.
Yes, agreed.
18 speed bumps is a lot cheaper than 3
Yep.
on a per speed bump basis.
Let's go forward with the neighborhood meeting for this. I know I've been harping on this for the year that I've been on the committee. I really want to see us look across the whole town, have at least some section of our agenda not just be a concern that someone has raised, but be, hey, let's look holistically at the streets in town, at the crosswalks. These are the problem areas, not just because residents have brought them up, but because we have the data and we have taken a comprehensive look.
And one of the things that I'd asked Alex a year ago, and we had some of BVSD here, and it was a little disappointing, is when I think of safe routes to school, it's mapping out how kids are getting to school and improving those paths. That doesn't exist. We need to sit down and do that.
Yep,
I thought BVSD actually had maps of how kids got to school. They don't. Safe routes to school just means, don't drive. So, maybe it's just a neighborhood meeting to talk about kids getting to schools and how they're getting to schools and the paths that they're using, and are those safe routes, and what can we do to improve them?
Yep. I would agree with that.
So,
I think that's a great starting point for a more comprehensive look.
Yeah. Let's start with that and then, expand it from there.
I would also like to see us, while we're talking about wish lists for this stuff, I would love it.
Kevin's not here, so we can just dream up everything, right?
Perfect. I'd really like us to get some speed monitoring devices that we can deploy on our own, not at a cost per time, but that we can just move around town without that cost. Because I think we need to look at a lot of different streets and intersections, and, doing the one-off, hiring a firm to do it, it just becomes a lot. And I understand that that's why we're going off of what residents bring to our attention. Yeah. But we need to look more comprehensively. I know you know that, Alex, but I want it stated on the record.
But even if we had the devices, we don't have personnel to move them around. So. But your point's well taken.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, so we can wrap up, here's another neighborhood where we actually had 2 requests. We had from the Riverbend neighborhood and then also Akron, and they kind of combined forces with a request. And we went and surveyed at these points on Akron is this street that kind of connects Coal Creek Drive and used to go into Waldona. So when that was closed, there was some, I think the neighborhood thinks that now they're getting some of the cut-through traffic. Some of that traffic is going through their neighborhood. So you have Akron, and then you have the Riverbend, which connects to Coal Creek and then also connects to Pitkin on the north. So there's the volumes we collected. They weren't, all that high, 510 on this portion of Riverbend, and then it decreases to 474, and then 280 on this stretch of Riverbend. On Akron, about 360. The 85th percentile speeds were 27 on this stretch of Riverbend. I think there's a 3-way stop here, so we do have an all-way stop at this location. But this location, as you go through Indiana, this is Indiana, right? Yep. Comes in and stops, but this stretch of Riverbend doesn't have any stop signs. And then Akron, there's a stop sign here and Coal Creek Drive. So that's why I see it's not very, very long. We tried to get in the midpoint where we wouldn't have high speeds. You do have some curves through there. So those were where the data was collected, and did the same type of analysis in terms of volumes and speeds. Didn't find too many accidents, just one in the last 8 years. Sorry. In terms of cut through, there may be some. I'm estimating about 200 vehicles per day. But again, it's hard to tell in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and Alex, that's a question I had. So, because I live in that area, and I know a lot of people will take Riverbend to avoid Rock Creek Parkway during school zone times. Exactly. Yeah. Because Rock Creek's 20, and you can just stay on Riverbend and go 25. and roll through the stop signs. I know a number of people that are guilty of that. And, I want us to get creative, in terms of maybe putting a, like a copycat school zone along Riverbend or something, so that the cut-through attractiveness is diminished. Because I think that cut-through number is actually higher.
It's
going to get worse with that new development.
Lanterns, yeah.
And we did see that the morning PM traffic was higher than the afternoon, which is usually the opposite. So there is some evidence that there's school cut-through traffic. So again, unimpeded lengths aren't all that bad. Riverbend was 750 from Riverbend Way to Akron, but from Akron to Coal Creek Drive, there's quite a long distance with an unimpeded length, and then Akron had only 855 feet of unimpeded length. So again, there, with some cut-through traffic, so what do we do about cut-through traffic? It's one of those things with Waldona, we stopped it there and it's going to go somewhere and balloon squeeze. So we'll have to be creative and try to address that. But again, we would go out and share this data with the neighborhood and try to discuss some traffic calming features or other things that we could do in that neighborhood to address their issues. And I know we have someone from
public comment.
The neighborhood.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the diagram, please?
To which one?
The map.
Map, okay.
Page 7.
With the, that'll work.
Yeah.
So my name is Stan Jarrett, and I'm the one that initiated the request for the upper part of Riverbend. And I want to spend a few minutes telling you about some of the analysis that we've already done. Alex was really nice. He sent me a copy of all the packages before Thanksgiving. Between then and yesterday, I talked to 11 of my neighbors along Riverbend and Montgomery Court. And so I have some feedback and some things for you to think about as you go do your own analysis, whether it's spreadsheets or whatever. And then a couple of concerns. But yes, so I did a diagram where I looked at all the combined data. And by the way, I'm a resident on Riverbend since the fall of 1991. And so let me just kind of talk about that a little bit. We have seen a repopulation of young families. You heard that description earlier. In the request that I put in, I identified about a dozen elementary school children and younger. We now have 19 kids along our street between Riverbend Way and Akron. 2 high schoolers, one who's driving, she's very cautious. We have 2 middle schoolers, the rest are elementary school age and younger. So it's really changed the nature of the neighborhood. You'll see that 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 to 10 o'clock is the big peak time. And my sense of things is that in the past, we used to get a lot of cut-through traffic, and particularly over here with the American version that Richmond put in, we had a lot of cut-through traffic come there. It tapered off after a few years, and then on Rock Creek Parkway, ever since they put in the flashing lights, we've noticed more traffic coming through here. But 510 average a day is less than what it used to be many years ago. So that is good things. You'll also notice that speeding, looking at the bins, and I just looked at the bins from 28 and above. The biggest concentration of speeding occurs right around 9 o'clock in the morning. And most of it is going upslope or going north on Riverbend. We have a lot of anecdotal evidence of just a few cars, such as a young man who has California plates. He's notorious for speeding both ways, up and down.